We are now in lesson 1.4, and this is about solving quadratic equations by completing the square. This topic is very closely related to lesson 1.3 about factoring. So in this topic, we complete the square, then we go to factoring. So you need to remember again our lesson last time about factoring. And to start our class, let's first recite our memory verse. Our memory verse is found in Colossians 2, verses 6 to 7. It says, "Let your roots grow down into him, and let your lives be built on him." Remember, for this chapter and these past lessons, we've been talking about roots, like finding the roots of quadratic equations. But let's also remember that in our spiritual journey, our roots must always be anchored in Christ. Now, let's have our meet the targets. At the end of this lesson, similar with the previous lessons, you'll be able to, number 1, solve quadratic equations by completing the square. And number 2, solve problems involving quadratic equations. So similar with lessons 2 and 3, we will find the roots, and the second will be a problem solving. Now, let's have a very brief review on a perfect square trinomial. Now, what is a perfect square trinomial? You have this in your grade 7 and grade 8 math lessons. So let's have a very brief review on what a perfect square trinomial is. Now, let's start. A perfect square trinomial can be written as the square of a binomial. So it means that if you have a perfect square trinomial, you can write it as this one: x plus y. Oops, I forgot the squared outside. Squared. So for example, if we have x minus 4 squared, or if we have quantity x plus 7 squared, if you will expand this, or we say the special product is a perfect square trinomial. Now, what is the form of a perfect square trinomial? Here, you look at this. The first term is a square. The second term can be a plus or a minus. It's twice the first and the last. And the last term is always a positive, like a positive, then the square of the last term. For example, let's have this. Remember our special products in grade 8. Square the first, x squared. Next, you multiply the first and the last. So x times negative 4, that's negative 4x times 2. So we have negative 8x. Then square the last, plus 16. Or let's have another one, like this. Square the first, x squared. Next, multiply the first and the second. 7 times x is 7x times 2, that's plus 14x. Then square the last, plus 49. So that these ones are what we call perfect square trinomial. Why trinomial? Because there are 3 terms, 1, 2, and 3. Remember, a term is divided or being separated by plus and minus signs. Now, how will you know in just one glance that a trinomial is a perfect square trinomial? For example, this one. How to do it? Here. As long as the first has a numerical coefficient of 1, here's how will you do it. The second one, you look at the last, it's always positive. The second one, you divide it by 2. So 10 divided by 2, that's 5, right? Then you square it, 25. So if the last term is the square of the half of the second term, of the middle term, then we say that it is a perfect square trinomial. Let's have more practice. Ready?
No.
Okay. For example, let's have more practice first. X squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 0. Let's check if it's a perfect square trinomial. You look at the second one. Negative 2 or 2, divide it by 2. Then you square it. What's 2 divided by 2? It's 1, right? So 1 squared is equal to 1. Therefore, this is a perfect square trinomial. Now, what are the factors? The factors are square root of x squared, x. Copy the sign of the middle term, minus square root of the last. Square root of 1 is 1. So the factor of this is x minus 1 squared. Another, x squared plus, let me think of a number, plus 20x plus 100 equals 0. Try to check it. Let's check the second one, the middle term. 20 divided by 2. The answer is 10. You square it. 10 squared is 100. The same with this. Therefore, this is a perfect square trinomial. What are the factors? Square root of x squared is x. Plus, so plus. Square root of 100 is 10. So the factors are x plus 10 to the power of 2. How about this one? X squared minus 10x plus 20 equals 0. Let's check if it's a perfect square trinomial. Ready? The second term. 10, or you say negative 10, the same. 10 divided by 2 is 5. You square 5. The answer is 25. Is it 25? No. Therefore, this is not a perfect square trinomial. Now, yes, Ali. Do you have any question? Yes, Ali.
How about if the third term is a fraction?
The third term is a fraction. Let me give you an example. Very good question. Wait. Let me erase some for a while. For example, we have x squared plus 5x plus 25 over 4. Let me first check something, okay? Because I might have given my bonus. Wait for a while. Yes. Let me change. Okay, this one. For example, my pen is here. X squared plus 3x plus 9 over 4 equals 0. Like that one. Now, how do we check if this is a perfect square trinomial? You go back to the middle term. What will we do? 3 divided by 2, right? Then what will happen after dividing by 2? You need to square it. This must be, the answer must be the last term. So we have 3 squared, 9. 2 squared is 4. If you check, the last term is 9 over 4. Therefore, this is a perfect square trinomial. How will you do the factors? Square root of x squared, x. Plus sign in the middle term, so plus sign. Again, whatever the sign of the middle term, that should be the sign of your factor in the last term. Next, square root of 9 over 4. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 4 is 2. So 3 halves to the power of 2. That's how you write it in a factor form. Any other questions?